This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey guys, Jay here. So today we're going to be taking a look at a hi-fi home audio system that is absolutely kick-ass that I've assembled for under $3,000. Now, quite literally, I have tried everything that I have in my arsenal to come up with this under $3,000 system that will absolutely kick ass, guaranteed. So I would definitely appreciate it if you could click on that like button and subscribe, as it took a long time for me to make this video. Now in this video, we're going to definitely go deep dive into why I selected the components that I did. You're gonna see components like Volumio, Eversolo, and Stark Sound. But I will also make suggestions as to alternatives if you want something a little bit different. And by the way, no audio brand mentioned in this video will be sponsoring this video. However, we do have a sponsor for this video, and that is BetterHelp. We all have different struggles in our lives, and BetterHelp is dedicated to finding you the right therapist for your needs. All you have to do is answer a few questions to find your match, and you can even switch therapists at no additional cost, just in case. With catered questionnaires, professional customer service, and option to switch therapists at no cost, once again, just in case, BetterHelp is a no-brainer choice. Take it from me, who thought therapy was highly overrated and too much of a hassle, until I hit rock bottom a few years back with the crippling loss of my grandfather and was struggling with my personal relationship at the time. I've tried finding the right therapist for me, but it was such a pain to set up appointments and go in person, especially when you are facing all these life problems in your life. Therapy just seemed like another thing that I put on my to-do list and forget about. Thankfully, my friend at the time recommended me BetterHelp, and it was life-changing for me after using it for several months at the time. So imagine my surprise when BetterHelp reached out to sponsor this video. BetterHelp truly helped me out in times of need, and therapists that I met was simply fantastic and the right fit for myself. We all have challenges and struggles in our life, and BetterHelp makes it easy to connect to the right therapist for you. Make sure to give it a try using my link in the description, betterhelp.com/iyagi, for 10% off on your first month of therapy. Now back to the video. So this is going to be relatively a simple system. We're gonna have the Volumio Primo being used as a streamer, DAC, and preamplifier. This unit is quite impressively $900, yet it's made in Italy using Saber DAC chip inside as well. It is pretty good sounding unit for $900 in my honest opinion. This unit is quite impressive and packed with features for $900 US. It has streaming capability that is compatible with many of the softwares that you may use, like Tidal Connect, Spotify, Qobuz, and AirPlay. And I like this unit because it has plethora of input and output options, including not just RCA outputs, but XLR outputs. And as you will see in a minute, this XLR output will become useful as part of this system setup specifically. But I also like this unit because it also has digital outputs like coax and USB, which means that if you want to upgrade your DAC later down the road, you can do so and add a separate external DAC to this unit without having to live with the built-in DAC that can go, out of date in the near future, as DAC changes faster than other components in the market. It also comes with its own app, which I find to be quite intuitive compared to many others in the market, but not as intuitive as the Eversolo DMP-A6 that I reviewed. Now, even though it doesn't have a volume knob in the front like the Eversolo, it does have digital volume control via using your phone inside the app itself. And if you're using AirPlay, it is also compatible to use the volume control on your phone or tablet to adjust the volume using just the dial on your phone or iPad. The obvious alternative to the Volumio Primo would be something like the Eversolo DMP-A6 at $860. The Eversolo DMP-A6 has more features, it has more intuitiveness in terms of user friendliness, it's much easier to use in my opinion, and third, it also has a nice screen on the front, which it does not have on the Volumio, but the Volumio also has a HDMI output that you can connect to a separate monitor. However, I specifically chose the Volumio Primo for the system because after doing some comparisons, I found the Volumio Primo to suit better to my taste and sounded better to me in the current system that I'm setting up. It mainly came down to the fact that for me, the Volumio Primo along with the Eversolo F2 amplifier that we'll be using, it just sounded synergistically a little bit less analytical and a little bit more musical to my ears. Now the F2 amplifier from Eversolo packs a lot of punch for only $800 US. This amplifier is capable of outputting 145 watts into 8 ohms and 250 watts into 4 ohms. And the really nice thing about this amplifier is that if you wanted more power for whatever reason down the road, you can buy another one, add just one more, to have them in monoblocks to effectively output 250 watts into 4 ohms and 450 watts into 2 ohms. This is obviously a Class D amplifier capable of outputting such a large amount of power for such a small form factor. The Class D module, interestingly, was designed in collaboration with Stark Sound, also featuring the binding post from Stark Sound that is trickled down from their more higher and more expensive amplifiers. It also has not just RCA inputs, but XLR inputs as well. Which again, if you're running long lengths of cables for whatever reason or want a quieter, more peace of mind, then you can use the XLR outputs from the Volumio to the inputs of the Stark Sound, which makes for a very good match. Now, I've had the F2 from Eversolo for about a year now, and this amplifier to me has that character of being analytical, transparent, very quiet, with a lot of orientation towards detail retrieval. And perhaps because it was designed in collaboration with Stark Sound, it sounds really good synergistically with the Stark Sound's new speaker, the Beta 7. Now last year, when I went to Expona where the Beta 7 was first introduced and had a chat with the Stark Sound's rep, they were using the F2 with the Stark Sound Beta and it sounded absolutely fabulous. So I naturally asked them if the sound profile in the synergy matching between their speakers and the F2 from Eversolo was in consideration when they collaborated with the amplifier, and their answer was yes, of course. We use our speakers all the time, so it is a entry level, so we wanted to make sure it sounds as good as possible with their entry line speakers. So it makes sense, they are a fantastic match in my opinion. Now this is not a full-on review of the Beta 7, so I won't go into all the details. I'll have a separate video discussing the Beta 7 by itself, but it is a 4 ohm nominal speaker, which is not a problem for the Stark Sound F2 since it's very capable at 4 ohms and actually more advantageous because it is able to output such a large amount of power at 4 ohms. Which gives you a lot more headroom to work with. Now in setting up this system, I had a specific goal in mind. When I first entered this hobby, there were a few things that made me go aha, and one of it was the fact that I can hear new things in my music. I enjoyed that immensely. It was a catnip for me getting into this hobby. And that's exactly what you get in this system. There's a lot of detail to be had in the system. You hear every detail in the music in a very neutral and balanced way. So it has that wow factor when you listen to the system. Like I said, there's a lot of detail and it can be fatiguing at times, but I found that even with poor recordings, this system is just on the borderline of getting fatiguing, and it doesn't actually get so fatiguing that you can't enjoy the system for a long periods of time. So while it's detail oriented, I find it still fairly musical and easy to listen to, and most importantly, hearing new things in the music pop out at you, very, very impressive. And the Stark Sound Beta 7, despite being only a $750 speaker, is a pretty attractive looking speaker and also sounds very good with very good measurement, linear measurement that I'll show you later on the actual video of the Beta 7, that I find to be a very good value at this price point. And along with the F2 from Eversolo that was designed in collaboration with Stark Sound, it just matches up really nice to give you that detail and finesse without getting over fatiguing and overwhelming with detail. And as cliche as it is about hearing new things in the music for the first time, that's exactly what this system is good at doing. You will hear things that you've not heard before in your music if this is your first hi-fi system. Take Daft Punk for example, that my girlfriend was listening to with me, and she mentioned, hey, I hear that thing going on. Is something wrong with the speakers? Because there's a little bit of distortion thing going on in the music. And I go, no, it's actually in the recording. And she goes, whoa, I'd never heard that before. And that was a cool moment for her. And aside from that wow factor of hearing new details in your music, there's much more to love about this system. For one thing, it does have dimensionality, good width and depth in the soundstage, so it doesn't feel constricted, and especially in those busy music tracks, things don't get crowded as it does in some systems. Now granted, this system still does struggle when things get really busy in the music with classical music or modern recordings that's recorded a little bit more brighter and hotter. But for the most part, things are well separated, and the width and the depth in the soundstage is quite impressive to where it doesn't feel so constricted to where the details feel like they're screeching out of a little hole, right? It just doesn't feel like it's forward and aggressive. Yet, you hear all the details in the music that you would ever want to hear. Now, the only thing that's a bummer is that in this system, the bass isn't as deep and visceral as I would like. With the Beta 7, I found that it was one of those speakers where if I place it closer to the wall, it didn't fall apart in terms of bass, in terms of the sound staging. I'll actually say it actually improved the bass a little bit because of that room gain when I pushed it closer to the wall. So those that can't have that room to pull out the speakers and want to listen to these speakers in a near field setup, in a more smaller medium setups, this is going to be a great starting point. So this system is going to be for more small to medium sized rooms, especially without a subwoofer. And for those bigger rooms, you're gonna definitely want to add a subwoofer. Something like the SVS SB1000 Pro for $600 or the Speedwoofer 10S Mark II for $450 would be a great match in this system, all while still staying true to that $3,000 budget for the system. Now, I do have an alternative recommendation for the amplifier in place of the Eversolo F2, since the Eversolo F2 was my favorite combination in this setup until a new amplifier came in that I decided to try because it was a perfect price point for this system, and that's the SMSL PA200 gallium nitride amplifier. And throwing this into the system, honestly, this became my new favorite ahead of the F2. Now, while the F2 had more detail and nuance to be had, the SMSL PA200 simply demolished the Eversolo F2 amplifier in that bass department and overall smoothness with the details. While I did find it more smooth and easygoing and more inviting than the Eversolo F2, I did still find that the detail retrievalness of the system was still retained to where everything sounded sparkly and very well lit up and spotlit, just like the F2, but with a little bit more smoothness and forgivingness to the overall sound, allowing me to enjoy the music in a more relaxed fashion. And like I mentioned, on top of that, it just had more tremendous bass in comparison to the F2. Now, I would still opt to add a subwoofer if I want to add that extra octave in the bottom, but the noticeable improvement in the bass and the amount of textures and punchiness and dynamics from going from the F2 to the PA200 was pretty obvious. The only thing is that this amplifier is less powerful when ran in stereo mode with a single unit, outputting only 85 watts into 8 ohms and 160 watts into 4 ohms. However, for only $420 and actually on sale right now for $364, this was an absolute bargain, and I still didn't feel like I was running out of power in my smallish medium listening room. However, the beauty is that you can have two of these like I do right here to effectively use them as monoblocks, just like the F2 amplifier from Eversolo, outputting 250 watts into 8 ohms and 400 watts into 4 ohms, which is a lot more power you ever need for these speakers and will give you a lot more headroom and dynamic range for this system. And two of these will only run you $840, $40 more than the Eversolo F2, and at the current sale price is actually less than the Eversolo F2 at $728. And once again, that's for two of these in monoblock. So I think the SMSL PA200 is my obvious favorite choice for the amplifier with the Beta 7 in this under $3,000 setup. And the beautiful thing about the PA200 is that you can actually use the preamplifier inside and the remote that comes with it instead of the digital remote control inside the Volumio if you ever choose to. Whereas the Eversolo F2 does not have that option, as it's just a solo amplifier with no volume control option. Now, as for speaker stands and cables and such, that won't be included in this video as part of the budget, but I'll link to some inexpensive ones that's actually very good value in the link description below so you can check it out for yourself. So finally, let's talk about who this system is for, because very clearly we have all different tastes, and this is going to be a system that is going to be for some people while it may not be for others. So this system is going to be great for those beginners that want to hear new things and dissect into the music. This is going to be a pretty analytical setup. However, I would not classify as clinical, as the overall sound is still very inviting to listen to, and while the details popping out is impressive, it's not fatiguing to listen to because of that nice staging of the width and the depth in the sound stage. So you're gonna get a pretty nice representation of what good stereo setup can do in a high fidelity setup. The system, however, is not going to be for those that want a warm, rich sound. I will have a different setup in the future for that kind of sound characteristic, but this system is going to be for those that want a neutral, overall balanced system, maybe your background is in studios and you want to hear every detail in your music, again, this system will be pretty good for home studios as well, really dissecting that music and really hearing into those recordings as much as you like. And especially if you enjoy well-recorded music, you'll know and learn to love the little nuances in those well-recorded music that you have really not heard before as imminently, while still retaining that musicality without things and details shouting and being right on your face so that it rips your ears apart and enjoys your enjoyment. Overall, it's going to be a pretty musical system that is still leaning towards the analytical side, but far from, again, clinical, harsh, and hard to listen to for long periods of time. And of course, this is a streaming setup, so if you're someone that has a large record collection or a CD collection and want to add a turntable or CD player, that's going to add onto the things that you have to buy for the system. And I'll have some recommendations below that will be a good match to the system on top of the digital playback. But if you are a full analog guy, clearly you would replace the Volumia Primo with your analog setup. That's in the recommendation below my description. So that's pretty much it for me. I hope this video was entertaining and helpful, and if it was, please consider clicking that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to check out our new merch in the description below on our merch website, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Until next time.